Sound Off Extra. I am the Solomonster here. It is Wednesday, November 20th, 2019. CM Punk's first official night on WWE Backstage was an eventful one. In less than an hour, he did a sit-down interview with Renee Young, called King Corbin's segment on SmackDown from a couple of weeks ago with the dog mascot garbage, said Seth Rollins needs to stop tweeting. He said things in WWE are still overproduced and micromanaged, and cut a promo on Tom Arnold at the end of the show that somehow turned into another burial of Seth Rollins. Tongue-in-cheek, of course, but a burial all the same. Here's the thing. Punk was having fun with it, or it seemed like he was having fun with it, but when the things that you're saying about the other person are true, it's a burial. Whether you intend for it to be or not, it is a burial. And Seth Rollins may be in for a long night on Sunday when he walks out in front of that crowd in Chicago, of all places, at Survivor Series, because Survivor Series just so happens to be in CM Punk's hometown. Probably the single worst city that he could be in front of this particular week. Now, I'm going to run down what happened on the show. It's a recap show, but this was a little bit different this week because they had Punk as a guest, and so Renee interviewed him, and they did a whole bunch of segments with him, so I want to just run down all the key things, all the, noteworthy things that happened on the show, give my thoughts on Punk in general, and some of the things he said, but we got the numbers for the episode that came in just a few hours ago, and I want to run through this real quick, too. I was very intrigued to see how this show was going to do. I thought it was very smart for them to do what they did last week, trotting him out at the very end of the show. You get to see him in the flesh. You know for a fact this guy is back. Sort of, kind of. Not really, but, on a WWE show, he's back. And what is that going to mean to the ratings? What kind of draw is CM Punk? Can he lift this show up? It's a recap show at 11 o'clock on a cable channel that does not have the same kind of penetration that a USA or a TNT or a TBS, and certainly not a Fox, has. We saw that a few weeks ago when SmackDown went to FS1 and did 888,000 viewers. The lowest number SmackDown has ever done in 20 years. What does the return of CM Punk, promoted 1 week in advance, mean to the ratings? They were coming off of a show 2 weeks ago that did 49,000 overnight viewers, by far the lowest number for a WWE show of any kind that I could ever remember seeing. They were able to double that last week. They were up a little bit. Got back up to about 100,000, which is still not a great number, but it was an improvement. Then Punk walked out at the end, and you would think, well, certainly the number is going to be up. I got tweets and messages from people this week who I assume they were serious when they said this, I couldn't believe it, who actually thought, do you think that this could do like Raw numbers? Or is it going to do 2 million viewers? Could it do 1.5 million viewers? And I just, I don't think people really fully understand just the fact that it's on FS1 at 11 o'clock at night on a Tuesday, and CM Punk, who I'm sure still has some value, you're really overestimating the value that I think anybody in that spot would have. I think you could trot out, the Macho Man, the ghost of Randy Savage. You could trot out on WWE Backstage. And I don't think that it would really mean much as far as the overall numbers are concerned at 11 o'clock on FS1 on a Tuesday night. So these expectations were just all over the place. And as I said to one person on Twitter, I said, no, not even close, but I do expect it to be up. And not surprisingly, the number was up, but not by what I thought it would be up. I thought it would do better. It did 180,000 viewers. So the number was up 80,000 from the week before, and it was up, I guess, what would that be, 130,000 or so from 2 weeks ago, which, from that number, that's a big improvement. They finally cracked the top 150 on cable for the first time since the show debuted on November 5th. But you compare it to some of the earlier preview airings that they had for the show back in mid-October. There was a playoff baseball game. When that ended, the show did almost 600,000 viewers. Obviously, you can credit the baseball game for that, but they got 600,000 viewers. Then there was a second special that aired of Backstage that did about 420-something thousand viewers. So the potential is there for them to rack up much bigger numbers. It just didn't happen the way I thought it would. I think in my mind, I was thinking reasonably they could probably get the number up to about 250, give or take. So when I heard 180, honestly, my first reaction was, it's kind of disappointing. Now, I'm sure Fox is happy, because it is a big improvement from 2 weeks ago. But my first reaction was to say that I thought it was a little disappointing. By no means do I think it defines how much, drawing power CM Punk does or doesn't have. The way to determine that is the traditional way. Can you get people to either buy a pay-per-view or, I guess in this case, sign up for the network and buy tickets to the show that he's wrestling on? But the key is he's got to be wrestling. That, I think, is the message here. If CM Punk is not back in the ring, if CM Punk is not back on Raw or SmackDown cutting promos on people and dropping pipe bombs and all that bullshit, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. And that was the biggest reason why, I was kind of surprised that all these people, oh my God, could he do 1 million viewers? Unless he's wrestling Renee Young, no. I don't think that was ever going to happen. Now, if this is what the show is going to be like every week, I watched the whole thing, start to finish. If this is what the show is going to be like every week, I would be way more inclined to tune in on a regular basis. Punk is not going to be on the show every week. I don't know if he's going to be on next week. I think he is. But the idea is that he will not be on every Tuesday. It was refreshing. It was refreshing not to hear someone shit on WWE and just bury the company on a Fox-produced WWE program, like an official WWE program. I mean, that was cool and all, because I'm all in favor of calling them out when they deserve to be called out. It's one thing to hear podcasters, people like me, kind of express our frustrations with the show and our gripes and shit on it and make our opinions well known. But to see some of those same views and expressions and opinions articulated on FS1 with WWE talent sitting there, Booker T sitting there, Paige is sitting there, Ember Moon is sitting there, Renee Young is sitting there. It was refreshing. It was refreshing. And it was telling how nervous everybody else on that set seemed to be whenever Punk would pop off about the company. You could tell at a few different points how scared they looked to say anything bad. Punk doesn't have that same concern. This is what Fox hired him for. They're going to get their money's worth with this guy. They wanted somebody who's willing to take a contrarian point of view and, cause stomach pains for maybe a few people in WWE. But one of the reasons it's fascinating to me, again, this was a Fox decision. WWE had to sign off on it, but this was a Fox decision. Fox paid $1 billion for SmackDown. And now they have this FS1 show, but they paid $1 billion for WWE. And now they have this guy who's going to go on television and talk about all the things that are wrong with the WWE product. All the things that could be improved with the WWE product. And they're going to see all these people on social media largely agreeing with what Punk is saying when it comes to all of this stuff. And I wonder if you're Fox, if you're a Fox executive, and you help put this deal together, $1 billion over 5 years for WWE. And you hear all of these opinions about what's wrong and how to fix this, and what is Fox thinking? What might Fox do? What might Fox say to Vince McMahon? Are they going to, have a meeting with them at some point and say, hey, we've made a list of some of these gripes that Punk has been bringing up on the show, and he makes a great point. We're wondering why you do, XYZ. Like, is that a conversation that Fox is willing to have at some point with WWE? This is why I think it's important to get a voice like his on this show. You never know. It takes one executive. It takes one suit sitting in the offices at Fox to get a bee up their ass, especially if the ratings keep dropping like they haven't been great. They haven't been great for SmackDown. If those numbers start to dwindle even more as we head into 2020, at what point does an executive at Fox stand up and say, hey, what's going on here? Maybe we need to have a conversation and kind of talk about this, see what can be done. That's the value, potentially, in having a voice like Punk's on a show like this, on a platform like this. That's why I think it's important. And let's be honest, it's just fucking entertaining. It's entertaining as shit. It's way more entertaining than a lot of other things I've seen lately on WWE television. And I'd like to see, some of these fools online who clap back at me and clap back at some other people for, criticizing all of these awful Raw and SmackDown segments and storylines where, sometimes they'll throw out, your AEW shill or NWA or some nonsense like that. When now you have somebody else voicing the same things on television. I don't think you could call CM Punk an AEW shill, can you? Doesn't seem like he's on very good terms with them. Let's just face facts here. It is just objectively bad television. Not everything on the show. And there was some good wrestling on Raw this week. And I am by no means lumping NXT into this. But it is just objectively bad television. And they need to be called out on it as much as possible so they know how bad it is, because I think they operate sometimes in their own little bubble. And the yes men truly don't think that they're putting out something that is trash. You think Bruce Pritchard goes to work every week and says, man, this is garbage, but man, I got a job to do. No, I think these people actually think this is funny. Or that this is quality shit. The talent, I'm sure, knows it. They're not stupid. They know it's bad. But they're too afraid to say anything about it. But I'm sure Vince McMahon thinks it's such good shit. And you got people like Pritchard, Mr. Box of Gimmicks, who probably feels the same way. So, Ember Moon joined Renee Young. Booker T, Paige were also there on the set this week. Ember had a walking boot on. She confirmed that she tore her Achilles. It's the same injury that Xavier Woods just went down with a few weeks ago. She's been told she could be out as long as a year and a half. And she's already been out for a few months. She could be out up to a year and a half, or it could be less than that. It's kind of up in the air right now when she'll be back. The point is, it is a terrible injury. It is a serious, awful, and in some cases for some people, especially if you're a football player, it could be a career-ending injury. Yeah, you get somebody who's maybe getting up there in years. Maybe they've already had a bunch of injuries. You tear your Achilles, and that could be the end of you. With wrestlers, I think it's a little bit different. But Ember made a great point. As an analyst here on the show, they were talking to her about Survivor Series. And what are your thoughts going into the show this weekend? How do you feel about the setup to the pay-per-view and everything? And she made a great point. That she wishes there was something on the line at Survivor Series in this whole battle for brand supremacy, because right now it's just bragging rights. But what are these people really fighting for? When they come and they invade every week on TV and they run out and this giant brawl breaks out, the Raw roster of Apollo Crews and No Way Jose and fucking Just Joe and Damian Demento, and they all run out there. The C-string brigade. But, why? What do you care? Doesn't affect your career. Why are you so loyal to a brand that chews you up and spits you out and doesn't give two shits about you? Ever notice that? Rarely is it the big names that come running out. It's the guys who aren't really even getting opportunities to be on TV. Like Apollo Crews that comes running out to, chase off the NXT invaders. Well, why the fuck would Apollo Crews give a shit? If I'm Apollo Crews, I'm watching this in the back going, let it all burn. Fuck these guys. Serves them right. So, we've been seeing this on TV every week. They've just been repeating the same thing over and over again now for what feels like 3 or 4 weeks. But it's why? Where's the sense of urgency coming from here? There's nothing on the line. What are they fighting for? Now, Ember suggested maybe the winning brand, the brand that racks up the most wins, is awarded the number 30 spot in the Royal Rumble match, or at least one of them, right? You got 2 Rumbles now. Not a bad idea. Now, with NXT in there, you got to remember you got to work them into this as well, but not a bad idea. You want to expand it out a little bit more? Maybe the winning brand gets a bonus draft pick or a couple of bonus draft picks. So, for example, if Raw wins, Maybe they get one free pick from SmackDown, from the SmackDown roster, and they get one free pick from the NXT roster, even though NXT, wasn't involved in the draft, but they're involved at Survivor Series, which is kind of strange. Like, they weren't good enough to be part of the draft, but they're good enough to be part of one of the big 4 pay-per-views. So I think there's several different things that you could do, and they've done nothing. So that's one point that I agree with Ember on. So Renee sat down with Punk. Punk did his It's Clobbering Time entrance as he walked out. He said 6 months ago, this job didn't exist. This was floated to me, and here we are. This really all started with his agent. His agent apparently went to him. He didn't tell this story, but as the story goes, his agent came to him and said, would you be interested in this? And he didn't shoot it down. He didn't say no. And it just kind of snowballed from there, and they brought him in for the tryout, the audition with Renee out in LA, and the rest is history. The only question is, did they sign him and keep it under wraps until the very last minute, or was it a case where they didn't get back to him? Because, as far as anybody knew, and even Punk himself had said that he hadn't heard back, maybe they didn't like him. Then that rating came in for week 1, which is what I think happened, and all of a sudden Fox said, hey, Phil, let's have a conversation. Come to think of it, we really did like your audition. We'd like to bring you in. And now we have CM Punk. He confirmed that he is a Fox employee. He has had no conversations whatsoever with anybody on the WWE side. So not Vince McMahon, not Triple H, nobody. He says he has no filter here on the show. He gets to criticize the product and what he sees as a broken business. And he gets to do so without the fear of reprisals or being buried or being jobbed out. He says not too many people contacted him after his big comeback last week. Jim Ross did. Jim Ross was one of the few who did. He says he and JR apparently text each other on a semi-regular basis. So then down to brass tacks. Renee's asking him, Survivor Series is in Chicago this weekend, and the Royal Rumble is coming up. People are going to be talking. People already speculating. WrestleMania is right around the corner. Will we see CM Punk back in a WWE ring? And his answer was very simple. And it's not something that is really any different than what you've probably heard him say in other interviews. He says, it's not something I'm actively lobbying for, but I've learned in this business to never say never. He gave the never say never answer. So you can cue up the Jim Carrey gif. So you're saying there's a chance? Yes. Yes, there is. He says it would take rebuilding bridges that were burned down, basically, but he has not spoken to anybody in WWE. He goes, it could take as long to rebuild that wall as it took to build the Great Wall of China. But he leaves it open under the guise of never say never. And I said last week, I fully believe that CM Punk is going to be back, but I don't think it's going to be any time in the near future. And frankly, maybe not at all in 2020. So all these people saying, oh, he's definitely in the Rumble, or they're definitely setting up for a Seth match or something at WrestleMania, I don't think that's the case. I take him at his word. I really don't believe he's had any conversations with WWE. And maybe they'll reach out to him, maybe they won't, but I really believe that as things stand right now, he is perfectly content to just do this, and he'll do this until he gets bored, and he gets the itch, and he gets a nice money offer, and eventually he will come back. He's still a young guy. He's 42. He's 42 years old. Now, if he was 52, or if he let 17 years go by, like Steve Austin did, I would say, you know what? Stick a fork in him. He's done. He's not coming back. But he's been gone almost 6 years. He's in his early 40s. And the more he cuts promos on people like he did here in that segment at the end of the show, I think he's going to get that itch at some point to get paid to go back on WWE television and do it again. Or if Tony Khan wants to blow him away with an offer, technically, he's not a WWE employee. He does not have a WWE contract. He's a Fox employee. He could do backstage. I mean, Fox may not like this, but he could do backstage technically and go work for AEW if he wanted to. He can go be on TNT on he could be on FS1 on Tuesdays and then TNT on Wednesdays. Technically speaking, there is nothing stopping him. But do I think he's going to wrestle again? Yes, I do. He may not think so, but I think so. So he said he's had a lot of catching up to do on the product. I saw him tweet the other day that he was getting caught up on the last 5 years of WWE. Can you imagine? I don't think you could pay me enough. Imagine if you stopped watching WWE and all of a sudden you had the responsibility of having to cram 5 years worth of this stuff about the current product. 5 years worth to go back and watch everything you've missed. That sounds awful. It sounds absolutely awful. That sounds like a punishment. He says it feels the same as when he left, which was not meant as a compliment. He says things are overproduced. They're micromanaged. He says the women are one of the few bright spots, but the forced stuff about the women's revolution, hashtag this, hashtag that, he goes, that's all unnecessary. It's cringy, it's unnecessary. Just let the ladies go out there and do their thing. He says he loves NXT. He sees a lot of himself in that roster, being somebody himself who came from the independent scene like a lot of those guys did. Truth be told, a lot of the men and women from the indies that are on NXT right now on that roster, they owe a debt of gratitude to CM Punk and to Daniel Bryan. Those are the two guys that they owe a debt of gratitude to. Because had the two of those guys not broken through when they did, and it certainly was not with all that much help from WWE when they first got over, then it's very likely Triple H does not end up transforming NXT into this glorified indie the way that he has. And very likely that a lot of those people that we see now don't get signed. The smaller guys don't get signed. Guys who maybe didn't have the physique that they were looking for. Talents like AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe, who WWE passed on before because he wasn't what they were looking for. You can trace all of this back to Punk and Bryan getting over in the early 2010s. Then they did a segment called Promo School. Did a segment here where they brought out David Arquette, former WCW World Champion, turned independent wrestling celebrity of late. David Arquette. David Arquette's out there doing death matches now. Arquette is okay with me. He's always going to be okay in my book for donating. I mean, Ric Flair told this story in his book. Donating all the money he made all those years ago in WCW. All of it. Gave it away to the families of Owen Hart, Brian Pillman, and Droz. A class act. No matter what you may think of him, you know, the character that he had on TV or him as an actor or anything like that, a class act. All the way. Plus, you know, he was Dewey from Scream. The original Scream is one of my favorite movies. The rumor is they're actually possibly going to be making Scream 5. And they want to bring the original cast back. I don't know how serious that is. I don't know if any conversations have happened. I don't know how I feel about this. I haven't really seen, I haven't seen Neve Campbell in years. Is she even around anymore? Didn't she do a movie with The Rock? Neve Campbell? Got people listening to this now going, Neve who? Makes me sad. Anyway, they had him cut a promo, David Arquette that is, on Booker T. Booker T came out with a replica WCW belt over his shoulder. He stood there, and David Arquette, the idea was that he would be scored on his promo skills by Renee Young, CM Punk, Ember Moon, and Paige. They were the judges. They would give scores. And then Booker would have his chance to respond in kind. Punk was, I think, just hit the nail on the head with his analysis when this was over. He said, what Arquette did was less of a promo and more of like his attempt at a battle rap. And it went on for far too long. Arquette knew it. He said, I know. He was kind of meandering and he was cool about it. You know, he recognized his flaws. He said, no, you're right. I went on for too long. I lost my train of thought there at the end. I'll tell you what, I will take one of these meandering David Arquette battle rap promo hybrids than the usual scripted, you know, fare that we get on TV with buzzwords and all that stuff. He did take a dig at Punk. Arquette did in his rap. I keep calling it a rap. It was a promo, but again, it really kind of wasn't. He said, well, I know I had a horrible wrestling career, but it was better than Punk's MMA career. So he did the obligatory shot at CM Punk's MMA career. Punk chastised him for it, not for making fun of him. He was fine with that. He said, look, dude, you want to take shots at my MMA career? By all means, go for it. It's easy pickings. But he took a shot at him because he said, look, I would have had more respect for you had you not backtracked. As soon as he made the joke, Arquette almost like apologized. He was like, oh, no. I understand that it's, it takes a lot of guts to get into, MMA and step in there, and I have all the respect in the world for you. And Punk was like, dude, honestly, I would have respected you more if you just went all in and didn't backtrack. So they all gave him C's and D's and F's. They should start a new report card segment for Raw and SmackDown and give out those same grades. Booker was gracious. He did not tear into him, even though Arquette made a joke at one point about his wife. He didn't tear into him or anything. He told a story, actually. He said, look, in WCW, when they brought David Arquette in, the night on Thunder that he won the WCW title from Diamond Dallas Page, he came backstage when it was over. And one of the first people he saw was Booker T. And he asked Booker, how many world titles have you had? And Booker said, I've never won the world championship before. Because Booker didn't win his first WCW title until that summer, after the whole Bash at the Beach incident with Russo and Hogan. Well, Arquette went out on Nitro the following Monday, and he, I guess in doing his promo or whatever, he said that he didn't deserve the championship. He said men like Booker T did. And Booker said that may have single-handedly led to him later becoming the champion because Arquette name-dropped him like that on TV. And so he thanked David Arquette for... Now, I am almost sure Booker T was getting that title anyway. Regardless of David Arquette name-dropping him on TV, there were probably lots of other reasons why Booker was given the championship, and all the political BS had a lot to do with it that was going on at the time with, again, Russo and Hogan and Jarrett and all that just nonsense that was going on. But he thanked him for it. And so that was kind of a cool moment between the two of them. So fast forward a little bit. Punk is now back in his analyst role. They ask him for his thoughts on the SmackDown segment from last week with the guy in the bulldog costume during the Baron Corbin segment. And Punk said it made him question even joining this show. He says it was horrible. As the grass is green and the sky is blue. He says it was horrible. He called it garbage, and he leaned over. Paige was sitting in the chair next to him. He leans over and he starts putting pressure on Paige to agree with him. He's like, it's garbage, right? Right, Paige? He was trying to corrupt this poor woman. And so Paige reluctantly agreed. She gave it a thumbs down. She looked terrified to say anything bad about it, but Punk finally got her to do it. Punk has been quite the troublemaker this week. Between this and tagging Tony Khan in that tweet he sent out, which led to all the stuff between Khan and Randy Orton, he's an instigator. He's like Woody Punkpecker. And I read some notes earlier. I didn't have a chance to listen to it, but I read a synopsis of the latest episode of that Corey Graves WWE podcast, After the Bell. And apparently he made, and if I'm wrong, then somebody in the comments will correct me if you've heard it, but my understanding is, in talking about that Baron Corbin segment, he couldn't understand where all the hate was coming from. He couldn't understand why people hated that segment so much because, in his mind, it's obvious that the payoff is going to be the Bulldog getting speared by Roman Reigns. Which worries me because that means that we have not seen the last of the man in the furry dog costume. I just sort of assumed that it was a one-time deal. It was horribly received and we would never see him again. But if Corey Graves is to be believed, his maybe it's not something he's been told, but his belief is that we may not have seen the last of the big dog. Very concerning. My issue is not with the payoff being a spear, not being a spear. If you bring him back and Roman Reigns gives the guy in the costume a spear, great. I expected it on Friday, and it didn't happen. The dog disappeared. Maybe they're going to trot him out there at Survivor Series like he's the fucking gobbledygooker. And then he'll get speared. And it could be a great moment if in the middle of the match, this giant guy in a dog costume gets torn in half. It could turn out to be a great moment. He's missing the point. He's missing the point. The issue is that segment, in a vacuum, that segment was shit. It's okay to call something shit if you think it is shit. And then, if they do another segment and it's better, to turn around and say, you know what? That segment, that wasn't too bad. That was actually pretty good. That was a better segment. Nothing they do or don't do with the mascot going forward is going to change the fact that segment on that show on that night was shit. What is so hard for Corey Graves to understand about that? Then Renee Young brought up Seth Rollins and his tweets about wanting to fight CM Punk. Punk said that Seth needs to just stop tweeting. This is not the show where he can shoot his own angles. He says sometimes it's better to let people think you're a fool rather than open your mouth and remove all doubt. He told Seth to just delete the Twitter app off your phone for his own sake. Just absolutely buried this dude. This is one of the biggest supposed baby faces in the company that he said this about. And it was well deserved. Seth Rollins is a talented guy. Seth Rollins has had some amazing matches in his career thus far in WWE. Hasn't had the best year. Although he's engaged to Becky Lynch, so he's madly in love. On a personal level, he's having the time of his life. But on a professional level, he has not had the best several months of his career. So my issue is not with Seth Rollins, the athlete. My issue is not with Seth Rollins, the wrestler. You know, Mr. CrossFit Jesus over here. It has nothing to do with that. It's some of the stupid things that he said in interviews, on Twitter. It's too bad that Seth didn't take his advice. 10 minutes after this segment aired, he tweeted. He said, "Hell of a response," and he called Punk a coward. And then he promptly blocked CM Punk on Twitter for saying mean things about him and burning down his feelings. There was a great moment. By the way, when I tweeted that last night, people actually thought I was serious, that he blocked him? Wow, what a piece of garbage. I'm like, how am I supposed to know if he blocked it? It was a joke. I'm surprised he didn't have fucking Ringside News or something put a news bulletin up. Seth Rollins blocks CM Punk on Twitter per @Solomonster. Jesus Christ. So maybe he did. Maybe now he has. I'm sure at some point he probably will. But no, as far as I know, he has not officially blocked CM Punk yet. Yet being the key word. But there was a great moment in here where Punk asked Renee who her favorite member of The Shield was. And she says, "I like them all equally." And if that's the case, Becky Lynch would like to have a word with you. So to end the show, they read mean tweets from people, one of whom was Tom Arnold. Yes, the actor. And I use that loosely. Although he was actually not bad in True Lies. True Lies might have been the best movie he was ever in. But Tom Hanks. Now there's an actor. You want to see a real actor? Go see Tom Hanks. I've been hearing nothing but great things about this Mr. Rogers movie that he's in. I actually want to go. I saw the Mr. Rogers documentary, so I don't really see the need to go see this, but I might have to see it if it's so good. So Tom Arnold, I guess, tweeted something tongue-in-cheek about Punk, saying, this guy's $150 now. I think I could take him. One of these stupid celebrity tweets. So the premise of the segment is that the panelist then gets to cut a promo on this fan or celebrity or whoever is making the comment. So Punk says, Tom Arnold. Is this the same Tom Arnold who got famous by marrying Roseanne Barr? And for those asking, yes, the Roseanne tattoo that you see in the artwork here of this video, the tattoo of Roseanne's face on Tom's chest, that is real. That is not photoshopped. It's like Undertaker getting the name Sarah tattooed across his throat. To all the men listening to this right now, of which that's all 98% of the people probably listening to this or watching this right now, to the men listening to this within the sound of my voice, I'm sure that you love your wife very much. But shit happens. There's a reason that divorce attorneys get paid a lot of money. Don't get your wife's name tattooed across your throat, across your Adam's apple, on your balls, any other part of your body that would probably be painful to get it removed. Don't do it. Any other part of your anatomy that's going to cause you pain and problems. You will end up regretting it. You know, the year they got divorced, Arnold and Roseanne, it's got to be, oh my God, probably 25 years ago now. He got that tattoo in February. 12 hours. It took 12 hours to get her face tattooed on his chest. And she filed for divorce in April. 2 months later. And he immediately started getting it lasered off because he knew, and or at least this is what he told TMZ once, he said, you know, I will never be able to have sex with a woman again if they have to lay there staring back at a tattoo of Roseanne's face. So be smarter with the tattoos. That's my advice. Punk said it doesn't matter how much he weighs. Tom Arnold, you couldn't take me bowling. He said, go search for relevancy somewhere else, Seth. Before correcting himself and saying, I mean Tom. Somewhere in here, he also cursed. I know he said shit. He said the word shit, which Renee yelled at him for. And then he said, it's in my contract that I can swear. I'm sure it isn't. I enjoyed the hell out of this. I really did. And the difference in Renee, the host, as opposed to Renee, the commentator, is just night and I'm sure she would say the same thing. It is just night and day. We were all very upset when WWE ended Talking Smack. I think most of the feedback I got was insanely negative because people who watched the show really loved it, and I did too. It was a breath of fresh air, kind of like this was this week. Talking Smack was only half hour, but it was a great show, and I loved the chemistry between Renee Young and Daniel Bryan. This felt like a new version, like an upgraded, fancier version of Talking Smack. And unlike Bryan, Punk is not under contract. He's not under any kind of contract with WWE, so he's free to say whatever he wants to without having to worry about, again, anything. His wife working for the company, you know, like Brie Bella did when Daniel was doing that. Well, I guess Punk's wife too, right? Although they got married after he left. But he doesn't have to worry about any of that. The stuff with Seth, I guess the question some people might say, or you're being worked, or are we being worked? No, I don't think we are. I don't believe that it's all a work to set up a match at WrestleMania. WWE may end up wanting that to be the WrestleMania match. But I believe Punk when he says that he has not spoken to anyone in WWE. Now, are they going to reach out to him after this and offer him a whole bunch of money to wrestle Seth Rollins at WrestleMania? If I'm Vince McMahon, that's the move that I make. Even though it's not a match that really excites me personally. Maybe if you get Becky and AJ involved somehow. You know, we know those two can talk. Maybe that makes things interesting. But no, I don't believe it's a work. And he's absolutely right. I've been saying it for weeks now. Seth Rollins needs to stop tweeting. Or the next time he tweets about how much he hates football, which I guess has become kind of like a meme at this point every Sunday, when his team doesn't do well, he says, I hate football. You got to you got to hit him back. You got to hit him back with the obligatory response. If you don't like it, don't watch. I hear that really irritates them. If you missed my AEW Dynamite live stream, which I just wrapped up before I recorded this, went almost an hour talking about tonight's show, and another very entertaining segment involving Chris Jericho, who at the moment is the best thing going in all of wrestling, which is amazing to think about, but it's true. Go back and check that out. That's archived right now on the channel. And we got a big weekend coming up. We got NXT TakeOver, War Games coming up on Saturday. I'm probably not going to go live after that, although that's up in the air right now. If not, I will incorporate my review into episode 627. Another full episode of the podcast dropping on all the usual platforms, non-YouTube, this Sunday. And then on YouTube, Sunday night, you come right back here, hit that sub button so you'll be notified as soon as I go live, because I'm going live after the Survivor Series, Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. I certainly hope that we have a better show and a better finish than we did at Hell in a Cell last month. Although it was a great night in terms of all the people we had listening live and watching live. We had over 4,000, something like over 4,000 people watching live at one point, all at the same time. That was great. I appreciate that, but I certainly don't like having a show end the way that that one ended. So let us hope that we do not have a repeat of Hell in a Cell this Sunday at Survivor Series. But either way, I'll be live here on the channel on Sunday night. So hopefully I will see you right back here. Until then, be well, stay safe, have yourselves a great rest of the week. And I will see you for all of the new content coming up this weekend. Until then, take care, guys.